They came to harvest our planet's secrets, only to discover we'd already weaponized theirs. In the ruins of a poisoned Earth, humanity survives on borrowed time, shackled to alien overlords who see them as resources to be mined, not minds to fear. But when a desperate act of defiance reveals that the Veylans' most advanced technology was born in human labs, stolen and twisted, the fight for survival becomes a war of reclamation. Separated by light years and bound by blood, two sisters ignite a rebellion that spans worlds. One risks everything to steal back the science that enslaved her. The other broadcasts Earth's agony to a galaxy that prefers to look away. Together, they unearth a truth that could topple empires. The key to dismantling their oppressors lies not in raw power, but in the ingenuity of those who refuse to be erased. The Veylans thought they controlled our future. They didn't realize we'd already hacked their present.
Chapter 1. Earth, Sanctuary Zone. 12. The acid rain hissed as it ate through the rooftop tarp. 12-year-old Luz Martínez pressed her scavenged respirator tighter to her face and crawled toward the rain barrel. The air tasted like burnt plastic, even through the filter. Below her, the skeletal remains of Mexico City stretched under a mustard-colored sky, its streets choked with the rusted husks of solar cars and the flickering glow of illegal hydroponic farms. Luz! Her abuela's voice crackled through her earpiece. Come back inside. Storm's getting worse. 5 minutes, Luz lied, scooping brownish rainwater into a canteen. Her hands shook. The ration trucks hadn't come in weeks. If she didn't fill this, her little brother Mateo would start coughing blood again by dawn. A roar split the air. Luz froze as a Veylan orbital drone streaked overhead, its hull stamped with the interlocking rings of the Zorath Colonial Authority. Wardens, her abuela called them. They patrolled the sanctuary zones to ensure human compliance, which meant shooting anyone who wandered too close to the dead forest beyond the city. The drone's spotlight grazed the rooftop. Luz ducked, heart slamming against her ribs. The canteen slipped from her grip and clattered into the gutter. Zorath, Veylar Prime. City Ana Martínez woke to the sound of her own coughing. The respirator on her face stank of recycled oxygen and the tang of the cradle's fungal air filters. Her bunk in the worker barracks was coffin-sized, the walls dented from the last enforcer raid. Someone had scrawled, "We are not ghosts," in charcoal on the ceiling. She checked her wristpad. 43 credits. Enough for half a dose of lung stabilizer for Luz. Not enough. Move it, Tvek! A Veylan guard's guttural voice echoed through the barracks. Anna flinched at the slur. Tvek, maggots in their tongue. She joined the shuffling line of humans toward the refineries, their jumpsuits patched and soot-stained, while Veylan citizens glided past on elevated walkways, their iridescent scales shimmering under the triple moons. The refinery was a cathedral of suffering. Anna's station fed raw xenolith ore into smelters that belched emerald flames. The heat blistered her skin, even through the suit. Next to her, Javier, a former engineer from Buenos Aires, coughed into his sleeve. Heard the collective hit a supply depot last night, he muttered. Slowed production by 20%. Don't, Anna hissed. The last time someone mentioned the Stardust Collective, the enforcers disappeared 3 workers. But Javier grinned, his teeth smudged with ore dust. They're pissed. That's how you know it's working. Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. Luz didn't cry when the drone's spotlight pinned her to the roof. She didn't cry when the enforcers in their sleek black exosuits dragged her into the street. She cried when they poured her canteen into the gutter. Water theft, the lead enforcer said, his voice digitized through his helmet. 3rd offense, family fines doubled. Please, Luz choked. My brother... The shock baton knocked her breath out before she finished. Zorath, the cradle Anna's wristpad buzzed as she returned to the barracks. A message from Earth routed through 5 illegal relays. Luz detained. Fines dus au crore. Diagnosis: lung necrosis. 6 months untreated. Send meds, send credits. Abuela! The refinery's toxic haze blurred in Anna's vision. 200 credits. Luz's laughter echoed in her memory. Bright, reckless, alive. Now her sister was a number in a Veylan profit ledger. Martínez! A guard loomed in the doorway. Overtime shift, now. Anna wiped her face. I need to send a comm. The guard's tail, a whip-like appendage all Veylans had, lashed out, knocking the wrist pad from her hand. Tvek don't make demands. That night, Anna stared at the charcoal words on the ceiling. We are not ghosts. Somewhere in the cradle, Javier was right. It was time to stop acting like one. Chapter 2. Zorath, the Cradle. The Stardust Collective met in the belly of a derelict ore hauler, its hull pockmarked with decades of micrometeorite scars. Anna followed Javier through a maze of corroded pipes, her boots sticking to the floor's residue of chemical slime. The air here was marginally cleaner. Stolen oxygen tanks hissed in the corners, their Veylan corporate logos scratched into skulls. You sure about this? Anna whispered. Javier tossed her a respirator with a patched filter. Only thing I'm sure of? They'll kill Los faster with fines than any enforcer ever could. The room buzzed with hollow screens displaying Earth's collapsing biospheres and protest footage from a dozen alien labor camps. A woman with a scarred cheekbone, Captain Rhea, Javier called her, stood addressing a crowd of hollow-eyed workers. They drain our labor, our air, and call it charity, she snarled. But Zorath's wealth is built on our sisters' graves. Time to make it cost them. Anna's chest tightened. Rhea's words felt like a lit match thrown into the fuel of her rage. Earth, Sanctuary Zone. 12. Luz traced the cracks in the clinic's ceiling, each breath a wet rattle. The medbay reeked of antiseptic and despair. 2 beds over, a boy Herbage coughed into a bucket of black phlegm. Mija. Abuela pressed a damp cloth to Luz's forehead. Anna sent credits. The stabilizer's coming tomorrow. Luz didn't ask how her sister got the money. She'd heard the stories. Humans selling blood to Veylan biotech firms. Kidneys to off-world flesh markets. Anna wouldn't, she told herself. Not her. A Veylan newsfeed played on the wall screen. Human agitators on Zorath disrupt vital terraforming efforts. Colonial authority reminds citizens that unregistered Earth refugees pose a biohazard risk. Luz's fingers curled into fists. Liars. Zorath, Velar Prime, Data Nexus. Coyle adjusted his scale suit's high collar, hiding the gills that marked his lower caste Veylan lineage. His claws hovered over the security console. The data chip in his palm, stolen from his supervisor's desk, burned like a star. Access logs, human deportation manifests. He'd promised himself he'd stop digging, but then he'd seen the footage from Earth. Children with bleeding eyes, their bones warped by Zorath's industrial runoff. His company's runoff. The console beeped. A file opened. Deportation Code 74. Terminate laborers post-transfer. Incinerate remains. Kale's tail coiled tight around his leg. They weren't just deporting humans. They were erasing them. Zorath. The Cradle. Anna's first mission was a supply raid. Stick close, Javier hissed as they crept through the neon-lit underbelly of Velar Prime's commerce district. Above them, Veylan elites dined in floating restaurants, their laughter drifting down like ash. The target was a delivery drone hub. Oxygen tanks, medicine, protein paste. Rhea hacked the security feed. Go, 90 seconds. Anna's hands shook as she loaded crates onto a mag sled. A hollow frame on one tank showed a Veylan child laughing in a garden of crystalline flowers. Air so clean it sparkled. Move! Javier grabbed her arm as alarms blared. Enforcers descended on grav bikes, pulse rifles charging. Anna ran, a tank clutched to her chest. A plasma bolt seared past her ear. Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. The stabilizer injector glowed blue in Luz's palm. Anna sent this? Abuela nodded, her face grim. Said her boss gave her a bonus. Luz hesitated. The injector's logo, a Veylan pharma brand, was smudged with something dark. Blood. She pressed it to her thigh. Cool relief flooded her veins. For the first time in months, she breathed without pain. Zorath, the cradle am. Anna shoved the oxygen tank into Ria's hands. For the collective's medbay. Ria's eyes narrowed. You kept one. Anna didn't flinch. For my sister. A beat. Then Ria laughed. You've got claws, Martínez. Next time, we hit the orbital docks. Bigger payload. As Anna left, a figure stepped from the shadows. A Veylan male, his scales duller than the elites, his tail nervously flicking. I know what they're doing to your people, Qual said, pressing a data chip into her hand. And I know how to stop it. Anna recoiled. Why would a Veylan help us? His gills flushed cobalt, a sign of shame. Because they'll come for my kind next. Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. Luz dreamt of Anna that night. Her sister stood on a crumbling rooftop, Zorath's triple moons looming overhead. You're fighting, aren't you? Luz susurró. Anna smiled, a bruise blooming on her cheek. So are you. Zorath, Velar Prime, Data Nexus. Kale watched the security footage of Anna's raid. She moved like Earth itself, desperate, relentless, beautiful. He deleted the logs that implicated her. Let them come for me, he thought. I deserve it. Chapter 3. Zorath, Orbital Dock. Gamma 7. The dock hung like a jeweled spiderweb over Zorath's atmosphere, its mirrored pylons bristling with luxury star yachts and terraforming supply freighters. Anna floated in zero-G behind a cargo container, her mag gloves humming as Javier calibrated the breaching charges. Remember, Ria's voice crackled in their earpieces, we're here for the Nebula Dawn's cargo, terraforming nanobots. Cripple their tech, and we cripple their stranglehold on Earth. Kale's intel had been precise. The Veylan elite planned to use the bots to privatize Earth's last arable zones. Steal them, and we force negotiation. Anna clung to the logic like a prayer. This isn't terrorism. It's survival. Charges set, Javier whispered. Ready to blow the airlock? Anna nodded, her eyes catching the Nebula Dawn's emblem, a Veylan child cradling a thriving planet. The hypocrisy curdled her stomach. Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. Luz stood in the rain, the stabilizer's cool serum still lingering in her veins. The meds Anna sent had bought her weeks, maybe months. But the air tasted sharper now, her senses raw to the chemical reek. She'd started noticing patterns, drones circling at 0300, enforcers inspecting homes that displayed resistance slogans. They're scared, Abuela had said, stitching a fraying tarp. Fear makes even monsters reckless. A commotion erupted down the street. Luz ducked behind a rubble pile as enforcers dragged a man from a clinic. Dr. Ruiz, who'd been smuggling antibiotics. Conspiracy against the colonial authority, the enforcer barked. A hologram flared above them. Anna's face, gaunt and fierce, labeled Wanted. Stardust Terrorist. Luz's blood turned to ice. Zorath, Orbital Dock, Gamma 7. The breaching charge detonated silently, a flash of white light tearing open the Nebula Dawn's hull. Anna and Javier surged inside, pulse tasers drawn. The cargo hold stretched endlessly, stacked with hexagonal nanobot crates. Like stealing candy from a god, Javier laughed, slapping a dispersal charge onto a crate. Anna froze. The nanobots weren't just for terraforming, they were weaponized. Javier! Too late. Klaxons blared. Grav boot stomps echoed. A dozen Veylan enforcers swarmed the hold, rifles raised. Ambush! Ria shouted over comms. Fallbot! The line died. Javier shoved Anna toward an emergency vent. Go! She hesitated. Your sister needs you, he snarled. Go! Anna crawled into the vent as stun blasts lit the hold. Javier's scream followed her into the dark. Zorath, the cradle Kael, Watch the raid's live feed in a dingy safe house, his claws digging into the console. The enforcers had known exactly where the collective would strike. Because I gave them the intel. No, he'd only shared the nanobot specs with Anna, but his supervisor had accessed his terminal, tracked his movements. The door hissed open. Anna stood haloed in neon, her jumpsuit singed, eyes wild. You, she breathed. You sold us out. Kyle's gills flared crimson. I didn't, but they used me. My access, my codes. They've known about the collective for weeks. Anna raised her taser. Why? Because I tried to leak the deportation files. His tail coiled tight. My sister, she worked in a labor camp. They killed her for protesting. I thought I could fix it. Anna's hand shook. Outside, sirens wailed as enforcers swept the cradle. Earth? Sanctuary zone? 12. Luce pressed Anna's hollow face to her chest, the projection flickering against her ribs. The enforcers were raiding homes, hauling families into black vans. Collective sympathizers, they called them. Abuela gripped her shoulder. We have to run. Now. Where? Luz Sudaro. A roar split the sky. A Veylan dropship descended, its thrusters scattering rubble. Luz's breath caught. Painted on its hull was a human hand, clutching a star. The Stardust Collective's symbol. Zorath. The cradle? They took Javier, Anna said, her voice hollow. They'll torture him, kill him. Kyle opened an encrypted file on his wrist pad. They're planning worse. Look deportation code 74. Terminate laborers post-transfer, incinerate remains. They'll blame the collective's attacks, Kyle said. Start a purge to appease the public. Your people, mine. Anyone who resists. Anna stared at him. Why tell me? Because you're the only one who'll believe me. He handed her a data chip. Coordinates for a Veylan black site. Javier's there. So are the real deportation orders. Anna's wrist pad buzzed. A message from Earth scrambled. Greater than Stardust Cell here. Coming for you. Trust no one. Luz Zorath, Veylan High Council Chambers. The High Executor watched the raid footage, her scales rippling with disdain. The human pestilence ends tonight. Activate Code 74. Her aide hesitated. The public still sympathizes after the leaked corruption footage. Then leak something worse. She flicked a claw. Edit the feeds. Show their bombs killing children. Our children.
Zorath. The cradle, Anna studied the chip. If I do this, I'm walking into a trap. Yes, Kyle said, but Javier's alive? For now, they'll use him as bait. Anna stood. Then we give them better bait. She grabbed Kyle's wrist, her grip iron. You're helping me burn their lies to the ground. Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. The Stardust dropship landed in a storm of dust. Luce shielded her eyes as the ramp lowered, revealing a woman with Ria's scarred cheek. You're Anna's sister? The woman barked. Luce nodded. Good. You're our voice now. She tossed Luz a holocam. Show the galaxy what they've done to Earth. Zorath, black site. Theta Javier hung from magnetic cuffs, his face swollen but his grin intact. Took you long enough, Hermana. Anna primed her stolen plasma cutter. You're welcome. Kyle hacked the security grid, his claws trembling. We have 6 minutes. Plenty of time, Anna said. Somewhere, a bomb detonated. Chapter 4. Zorath, Black Site Theta, Outskirts. Anna dragged Javier through the smoke-choked corridor, his blood slick on her gloves. Kyle sprinted ahead, tail lashing as he jammed security panels with a stolen keycard. The air reeked of scorched metal and ionized plasma, the black site's alarms wailing like a dying beast. Left! Kyle barked, ducking as a turret erupted from the ceiling. Anna shoved Javier against the wall, shielding him as the turret shredded the floor where they'd stood. "Still, got my legs," Javier wheezed, his face a mosaic of bruises. "Might need 'em later." Anna's wristpad flashed. A map Kyle had uploaded. Dock 7, unregistered shuttle, Freedom, 500 meters away. A Veylan enforcer rounded the corner, rifle raised. Kyle lunged, tail whipping the weapon aside. Anna didn't hesitate. She drove her stolen shock baton into the enforcer's gills. He crumpled, scales sizzling. "Since when do you fight?" Kyle panted. "Since you dragged me into this," Anna snapped, but her hands trembled. Luz's face on the wanted feed. The enforcer's lies. They ran. Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. Luz crouched behind a collapsed transit drone, holocom aimed at the enforcer checkpoint. The stabilizer's serum sharpened her focus. Every rusted barb on the Veylan gate, every tremor in the detainee's hands. "They're calling it a humanitarian outpost," she whispered into the cam's mic, panning to the skeletal children behind the fence. "But where's the aid? The medicine?" Abuela tugged her sleeve. "Mija, the patrol—" Too late. A grav bike screeched overhead, spotlight blazing. Luz shoved the holocam into her backpack and ran, Abuela's labored breaths echoing hers. They wove through corpse-gray alleyways, the enforcer's shouts closing in. "Here!" A scarred woman yanked them into a gutted storefront. Ria's Earth liaison, Nico. The walls were plastered with Anna's wanted poster. "Broadcast this!" Nico thrust a jammer into Luz's hands. "Channel 9.7. The whole galaxy needs to see." Luz's pulse roared. Anna's voice in her dream. "So are you." Zorath, Dock 7. The shuttle was a rusted wedge of metal, its thrusters patched with scrap. Anna strapped Javier into a medcot, her fingers smearing his blood on the harness. "You're lucky they didn't break your spine," she muttered. "Just my pride." Javier winced as the shuttle lurched. "Where's Lizard King?" Kyle hunched over the nav console, claws tapping furiously. "They've locked orbital traffic. We'll have to burn through the storm belt." Anna stared at him. "We'll fry." "You'd rather rot in a cell?" The shuttle roared into Zorath's crimson sky. Lightning clawed the view screen. Anna gripped Javier's cot. Luz's medicine, the collective's lies, Kyle's unreadable eyes. "Why'd you really help us?" she asked Kyle. He didn't look up. "My sister's name was Lyra. They deleted her file, pretended she never existed." His tail coiled tight. "Sound familiar? Earth, Sanctuary Zone 12. The holofeed flickered to life in 1,000 underground dens, smuggled relays, and hacked Veylan satellites. Luz's face filled the screen, backdropped by Earth's ruins. "My name is Luz Martínez. I'm 12 years old. I've never tasted clean water." She held up a vial of black liquid from the rain barrel. "The colonial authority says they're saving us. But my sister Anna works in their refineries. She's paid in lies." The feed cut to Anna's raid on the orbital dock, unedited. Veylan enforcers firing first. Javier's scream as stun blasts hit. "They call us terrorists. But what do you call stealing a planet?"
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for the rest of the story. Link in bio.